justice campaign, which is now in full effect.
The City of Compton is pleased to partner with KBLA Talk 1580 to celebrate Earth Day 2024 as we serve, share, and help our city shine.
And KBLA Talk 1580 is just as excited to join the City of Compton as we broadcast live and bring our KBLA delegation with us to help clean and beautify our community, and you are invited to join us.
Come meet us on Saturday, April the 20th from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. at 212 West Cypress Street in Compton as we fan out to clean up our city.
The first 50 KBLA listeners to hit our website at KBLA1580.com will receive a free KBLA tee when you join us on Saturday morning, April 20th from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. at 212 West Cypress Street in Compton. Now, no show, no shirt, but sign up at KBLA1580.com right now to help us clean up Compton as part of Earth Day 2024.
We will see you on Saturday, April the 20th, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. at 212 West Cypress Street in the City of Compton to do our part for Earth Day 2024.
We are KBLA Talk 1580, caring about the climate, caring about the community, cleaning up Compton. Live from historic Limerick Park in Los Angeles, California, I'm Tavis Smiley, and I'm so glad to see you and me back in stride again. Before we get started with today's show, let me invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley, and get updates on X, that's formerly Twitter, at Tavis Smiley. By the way, should you miss any part of today's program or want to catch up on previous shows, you can always visit thetavisSmileyShow.com. That's thetavisSmileyShow.com, or wherever you get your podcast, and listen to the Tavis Smiley podcast version of this live program at your leisure. Another great show on tap for you today. In our second hour, longtime activist and leading public intellectual Dr. Ron Daniels is back with us today. We'll talk about the ongoing crisis in Haiti, reparations, the 40th anniversary of Jesse Jackson's historic 84 presidential campaign, and much more. Ron Daniels today in our second hour. In our third hour,
I ask you this, which way to go? I ask you this, which sin to bear, which crown to put upon my head. I do not know, Lord God, I do not know.
renowned baritone soloist James Martin on his new project, Wide as Heaven, A Century of Song by Black American Composers. The collection, an amazing one by the way, represents 100 years of music produced by American composers and poets of color. In other words, the best of us, the very best of us. Unfortunately, too many of these black voices have been stifled from inclusion in our American story thus far. Wide as Heaven aims to confront and correct that particular oversight, and so we will talk to the brilliant baritone James Martin today in hour 3. But in this first hour,
Georgia, Georgia, the whole day through, just an old sweet song keeps Georgia on my mind.
let's talk politics in this hour with Capital B News reporter Chauncey Alcorn, who in part is here today to remind us why we should all have Georgia on our minds this election year. Before we get to Georgia, though, there's a whole lot of other stuff to cover. But there are a number of interesting fights, if I can put it that way, interesting issues that are happening in the state of Georgia. Of course, we all keeping our eye on Fani Willis and her case, although right now our eyes are on Alvin Bragg in Manhattan and his case, which we'll talk about here in a moment. But there's a lot happening in Georgia. There always is around presidential election season. But there are particular reasons to keep our eyes on the state of Georgia this time around. Of course, we kept our eyes on Georgia last time around when Raphael Warnock had to fight, 1, 2, 3 different fights to finally pull that thing off and be granted a full term. And not to mention the John Ossoff race. There's a lot to talk about with regard to Georgia, and we'll do that in this hour. But as I mentioned, while we've been talking about the Trump case in Georgia of late, given what happened yesterday, we are focused now on this case in Manhattan. I've said many times on this program, it is amazing to me, and maybe amazing is too strong a word, but it speaks volumes. Let me try that. It speaks volumes. The number of African Americans who are in positions of authority vis-a-vis the law and law enforcement, with all these cases involving one Donald Trump. There is the black Fani Willis in Atlanta, Georgia. There's the black Letitia James in the state of New York, Attorney General. And there's the black Alvin Bragg, the DA, in Manhattan. And say nothing of the black Benny Thompson, whose January 6th insurrection committee made all this possible. Jack Smith wouldn't be bringing the case that he's bringing or attempting to bring had it not been for that brother from Mississippi, Benny Thompson, who chaired that committee and brought that report to light and basically forced the hand, if you will, of one Merrick Garland, the Attorney General. So there are a lot of black folk involved in these stories. But yesterday was the first day of the trial, as you well know, of Donald Trump in Manhattan, this hush money case involving payments through his former attorney Michael Cohen to Stormy Daniels, the porn star, to keep her quiet. There is breaking news about that today. I mean, there's all kind of storylines that came out of this yesterday. Make no mistake about it. All kinds of storylines that came out of yesterday. But the story today, among others, is that Alvin Bragg, the DA in Manhattan, has now filed a motion for the judge to hold Donald Trump in contempt. He's had enough already. It's only day 2. But given what Trump said yesterday, given what Trump posted yesterday on Truth Social, Alvin Bragg is asking the judge right now in New York City to hold Donald Trump in contempt of court for violating the gag order in this particular case. Other judges have been they've played, they kept their hands off of Trump. They threatened to do this, threatened to do that, but nobody's really held him in contempt. Alvin Bragg on day 2 has now asked the judge to hold Donald Trump in contempt of court today. We'll talk about that and a great deal more, but Chauncey Alcorn when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
From Leimert Park with love, this is Tavis Smiley.
Hey y'all, Mona Swain here from Target's new YouTube series, My Cart is Full, where we feature black founders and creators highlighting their connection to our community. As an actor and content creator, I love using my voice to inspire young black women who look like me. When it comes to feeding my shine, seeing myself reflected in black-owned and founded products at Target brings me joy. Together, we are Black Beyond Measure. Learn more at target.com/blackbeyondmeasure.
Cookie wants to be a professional wrestler. I'm Cookie Serratos, and I'm 11 years old.
She also wants to win all the medals. That's why Cookie and her family make every day count, squeezing out her best with Go-Go Squeeze.
Okay, Cookie, let's break for a Go-Go Squeeze.
Go-Go Squeeze fruit-on-the-go pouches are a nutritious snack made from 100% fruit with no sugar added.
Call Cookie!
Because when you nurture your kids, you squeeze out the best in them. Squeeze out the best with Go-Go Squeeze. Not a low-calorie food. Products range from 11 to 13 grams of sugar and 60 to 70 calories per serving.
Hi, I'm Henry Winkler. My eyes are very important to me. My eyes connect me with everything I love. I loved my late father-in-law dearly. He always lit up a room, but his vision dimmed with age. He had age-related macular degeneration, or AMD. And since partnering with Apellis, I've learned there's an advanced form of dry AMD called geographic atrophy, or GA. His struggle with vision loss made me want to help others know about GA's warning signs. For some, colors appear dull or washed out. For others, hazy or blurred vision make it hard to see details, like fine print on price tags. Many have trouble seeing in the dark, making driving at night difficult. GA gets worse over time and cannot be reversed. If you think you have GA, don't wait. Treatments are available. Ask a retina specialist about FDA-approved treatments for GA and go to GAWon'tWait.com.
Some days I cover up because of my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis. Now I'm hitting the road with clearer skin thanks to Skyrizi, Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection for adults who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy. With Skyrizi, 3 out of 4 people achieved 90% clearer skin at 4 months. And Skyrizi is just 4 doses a year after 2 starter doses.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check for infection and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms such as fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, or if you plan to or recently received a vaccine.
Thanks to Skyrizi, there's nothing on my skin, and that means everything. Ask your doctor today about Skyrizi, the #1 dermatologist prescribed biologic in psoriasis, and visit skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKY-RIZZI to learn more.
He's rooting for everybody black. Everybody black. More of Tavis Smiley coming your way right now.
A couple of housekeeping matters before we jump into this conversation with Chauncey Alcorn, who is politics reporter for Capital B News. For starters, Chauncey, good to have you on the program. How are you today, sir?
Doing great, Tavis. Glad to be here.
Good to have you on, man. I said a couple of housekeeping things. One, because I am from Mississippi, born there, grew up in the Midwest in Indiana, but Mississippi is home. And I learned many, many years ago when I was just a kid that there's a correct way to pronounce that word, Alcorn. You take you take my point. If you're in Mississippi and you pronounce it wrong, you will get the business. So do you say Alcorn or Alcorn?
Well, I say Alcorn. My dad would say it's Alcorn. So,
okay.
But I answered to both.
Okay. I don't want to disrespect your daddy, so I thought I'd better ask that question first. Secondly, I know about Capital B News, hence your being on this program, but the audience has heard me say this more than once, and I'll continue to say it for as long as I live, that black media is more relevant, more necessary, more urgent now than ever before because, why? You know, there's some questions that don't get asked if we don't ask them, some issues that don't get raised if we don't raise them, some folk doing some great work who don't get profiled if we don't profile them. So there's a pressing need, an urgency, indeed, for black media these days. With that said, tell us about Capital B News, and then we'll jump into the news of the day.
Could not agree with you more, Tavis, and thanks for teeing that up for me. First off, Capital B News is a black-led digital news nonprofit that centers black voices in its coverage. We've been around a little over 2 years now, and while other news organizations are shrinking, we've been growing. Opened last year our latest local news operation in Gary, Indiana, which has its own very unique and storied black legacy. Mm-hmm. We've done a lot of impactful reporting that's been cited, linked, or mentioned by legacy media, including CNN and the New York Times, and even the federal government. That's one of the things that makes us different and more impactful in the communities that we serve. We all know the news industry is struggling mightily right now, especially local news, but as you've already touched on, both could not be more critical with all the issues facing Black America. We move in the spirit of Black journalist pioneers like John Westworm, Samuel Cornish, Ida B. Wells, Frederick Douglass, and Sojourner Truth, and the late, great Ed Bradley. If you believe in Black media and want to support the Black press, please consider donating to our nonprofit and signing up for our newsletters. You can check out my work at atlanta.capitalbnews.org. I work for Capital B Atlanta, the Atlanta office. We also have capitalbnews.org, which is our national affiliate, and gary.capitalbnews.org is our Indiana affiliate.
Yep. A few follow-up questions right quick, and then we'll jump into the news of the day, Trump, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. To your point earlier that Capital B is growing while other news operations are shrinking, that in fact is true. But what's your sense of why this black outlet, black-led outlet, Capital B News, is growing again while others are shrinking?
Well, there's a number of things. Number one, we have a nonprofit news model similar to ProPublica. We rely primarily on donations and not just advertising, while other agencies, rely on advertising, and that's, puts you subject to whatever the marketplace is going. And right now, post-COVID era, people are going outside. They're tuning out news a lot of the time. People have remarked to me that the news is depressing. So the nonprofit news model is, as I mentioned, relies more on donations and the need for local news. Our funders understand it. They understand the call for it. There's a lot of issues at the local level that don't get focused on across the country as bureaus, in Metro Atlanta and other parts of the country are shrinking because of lack of resources, because of that ad model that we talked about. So we're kind of charting a new lane in this space. Texas Tribune in the Houston area is a similar model. And we're not immune to the market, but we are somewhat more insulated because we function more on donations than advertising.
Yep. One final question about that. I know why I'm doing what I'm doing here every day, not just at my home station in LA, KBLA Talk 1580, but indeed this program is syndicated. I know why I'm doing that. I'm very clear on what my mission is, what my mandate is. I'm clear about that. But I'm always fascinated by other Black people who choose to work for Black news outlets, or for that matter, Black anything. I know your backstory. You've worked at CNN. You've worked at Fortune magazine. You worked at the Daily News in New York. We're going to New York in just a second in this conversation. So you worked a few places, but at this point in your life and your career, why is it important for you to be at a Black-led media outlet? I'm just curious.
Very good question. I studied journalism, got my master's degree at the CUNY Graduate School of Journalism, finished the program in 2017. During my first semester, one of the men that I encountered, who at the time was a professor, was a little known guy named Ta-Nehisi Coates. This was before his major hit book, Between the World and Me, came out. And I had asked him, because I was stringing for the New York Daily News while I was in school. And my editors continually sent me, I lived in Harlem, so I was sent up to National Action Network headquarters a lot. As you know, that's on 145th Street.
Sure.
That's Reverend Al Sharpton's church home. And, I asked Ta-Nehisi about being pigeonholed, and he, in a polite way, kind of scolded me because he's talked about the diaspora of Blackness and how so much of it is uncovered, and it could not be more crucial. And that was at the time the becoming the height of the Black Lives Matter movement, with the non-indictment of Daniel Pantaleo in New York in the chokehold death of Eric Garner. And so he basically challenged me to take this as a challenge and not as looking at it as though, they're just sending me here because I'm Black. So I have taken that as a mission ever since then. And it led me to Atlanta, which is, the central, regarded as kind of the Black Mecca, even though that's somewhat of a misnomer economically. And, I've been encouraged as I've worked here to see Black folks who support us, who thank us for our coverage, and say that they haven't seen reporters come out to their communities the way that we have. And it's been a guiding light. And it's we don't get into this business to get rich. And at my age, it's always encouraging to hear people that still appreciate what we do for a living.
Well, I can say amen to that latter point. You do not do this to get rich. Amen, amen, amen to that. I can give you a testimony about that if I had the time, but we ain't got time for that. Speaking of NAN, National Action Network, President Biden just spoke there, I guess, last week. I was just reading the story about that. That President Biden was hanging out with Al Sharpton, speaking at NAN just last week, making his case for why black folks should consider voting for him this time around and not the other guy or other guys or gals for that matter. Again, just reading that story the other day since you mentioned NAN. Let me jump now to make the most of the time we have left between now and the top of the hour, covering some of the news stories of the day. But I never ever want to miss an opportunity on this program as long as I'm sitting in this seat to shout out black news organizations, those who are against the odds, are doing the kind of righteous work, the heavy lifting that I think matters not just to black subscribers and readers and fellow citizens, but others as well who are curious about another point of view, seeing the world through a different prism. And so I celebrate Capital B News and the good team that works there, and want to do what I can to make sure that you are aware of them. Google them, read about them, and support them as you support us here in our work. And I thank you for that in advance. Now, let me stay at Atlanta for a second, then I'll jump to New York in just a second. I mentioned moments ago that the country's been sort of fixated for a while now on the case regarding Donald Trump in Atlanta, the case being brought by Fani Willis. But now our attention is in New York with this case brought by Alvin Bragg. What say you first and foremost about all these black people who are at the epicenter of cases involving a former president who may in fact, I should say, have something to do with him perhaps one day being behind prison bars? But it's an amazing storyline that I don't see enough about vis-a-vis these black people who are at the epicenter of all of these cases, not to mention Judge Tanya Chupkin, one of the judges in the case with Jack Smith. The judge in that case is black. What a difference a couple hundred years makes, right?
Absolutely. You can, and thanks for teeing this up. Yeah, you can check out our story on that exact subject on capitalbnews.org. I myself and my colleague Brendan Tinsley at Capital B National did a story about a year ago when the Bragg case was indictment, I believe, was announced, talking about just that. Fani Willis, Letitia James, the Attorney General, in the state of New York, and Alvin Bragg, the prosecutor in Manhattan, bringing these charges against Trump and being at the forefront of this conversation. Trump, of course, has lashed out and characterized all of these people as racist for going after him. But it does signal, as you noted, some progress in terms of racial progress in the country, but also some political changing in terms of the representation of black folks prominently, particularly in the Democratic Party, as the country continues, the demographics continue to change. And these folks are out in front on these issues, and especially I would say Letitia James and Fani Willis have been very pointed in their criticisms and their indictments of Trump, they are very sharp women. But I interviewed some of Fani's colleagues about her last year in a story I did about her. They basically remarked that she's very aggressive, very, very shrewd. And, she's brought these kind of RICO cases in Georgia a number of times against, folks implicated in the cheating scandal here a number of years ago. And also the YSL case with the rapper Young Thug. So this is not her first go around at this, although obviously it's a historic one involving a former president.
Race is clearly a storyline. Johnny Cochran, we were just talking about Johnny last week on the occasion of the death of O.J. Simpson. Johnny Cochran once famously said that race is a part of everything in America, and I think Johnny was probably right about that. But clearly, race is already a storyline in this presidential race in a variety of ways. We don't have time to unpack all the ways that race is already a storyline. But it is on the Trump side and the Biden side. Say nothing of Cornel West and Melina Abdullah now running running their independent campaign. So race again is always an issue, but it clearly is an issue this time around. But I'm looking a little further down the road here, and I want to know if you're looking down the road, Chauncey Alcorn, and tell me what you see. But my sense is, given what we're talking about now, that these prosecutors happen to be black that are bringing many of these charges against Donald Trump. Letitia James already successful in her case. We'll see what happens on appeal, but she was successful in winning that case, getting what she wanted. We'll see what Alvin Bragg does in New York. We'll see what Fani Willis does in Atlanta. But black people are clearly at the epicenter of these cases. As I said, don't forget the judge in the D.C. case with Jack Smith is a black woman. So black people are again at the epicenter. My sense is that because of these persons bringing these charges, because one of the jurists is black, because in D.C. and certainly in Manhattan, we're in the process now of jury selection. But you can rest assured when all is said and done, there's going to be a number, perhaps an overwhelming number, of black and brown folk on these juries. You probably know where I'm going with this. You can already see the storyline. Sometimes in our business, the storylines write themselves, right? We ain't got to do too much work. You can already see the storyline that Donald Trump is going to advance, making race an even bigger issue in this campaign between now and November, that these black folk are out to get him, that these black folk are his undoing, his unmooring. Not that he broke the law, not that he did anything, not that he was wrong in his behavior, his bad behavior, but that these black folk were his undoing. I see that storyline coming, and yet I'm also trying to juxtapose what I know is coming down the pike with his outreach to black folk, his embrace of black folk, and his suggestion that he's the best thing for black people. I don't know how he's going to weave both of those two things together, but I see both of those storylines coming to a head at some point. That's what I see. I ain't a prognosticator, but I've been at this a long time, and I see those storylines converging. What say you?
I think you're right, and I think it's interesting. First and foremost, just a little side note. I remember when I was stringing for the news, interviewing a couple of times with Tisha James when she was just public advocate, and it's been amazing to see her ascendancy as the Attorney General of New York. So that's just a personal note. But yes, I agree 100%. Trump, whenever things don't go his way, and there's a person of color in the room, he tends to lob it, the race card, ironically, at them. That was the case around the time that he was indicted in New York and at the state level in New York, as well as New York City and here in Georgia as well. So that is something certainly I think will be pointed here. Folks have been scrutinizing Fani Willis for all kinds of things that have nothing to do with the Trump case, as you well know. It's kind of a common refrain for him with his base to try to use race as a wedge to drive his home political points, especially that he's being persecuted and that, brown people are out to get you in some, a number of ways that may not always be direct, whether it's illegal immigration or whether it's concerns about crime. He often uses race as a bludgeon to try to rally his base of supporters around him. And it's reasonable to conclude he would do the same thing here. Yeah, he's going to do the same thing. And my point and your point, I think, is that we're going to see a lot more of it. So brace yourself. If you think race is already too much of an issue in this campaign, check yourself before you wreck yourself, because it's about to be much more acute and much more extreme as I see it, as these cases continue to advance. But we'll talk when we come forward about the decision by Alvin Bragg today specifically to ask the judge to hold Donald Trump in contempt of court for his words already on day 2. There are a number of storylines coming out of the first day of the trial. As I mentioned, we'll talk a little bit about that. And then we'll work our way down to Georgia and talk about why we need to keep our eyes and minds on the state of Georgia in this year. You're listening to Chauncey Alcorn, who's politics reporter for Capital B News right now on Tavis Smiley.
Unapologetically progressive. Unapologetically black. You're tapped into Tavis Smiley.
Paid for by government.com. Did you know? The United States Mint has issued a new Morgan silver dollar coin in proof condition for the first time. Not only that, they are also minted in 99.9% pure silver for the first time ever in history. Coin experts are calling this an amazing opportunity for anyone that knows the enduring popularity of Morgans. But you must hurry. Only 400,000 of these legal tender silver dollars were issued. These first ever Morgan silver dollars are brand new with stunning mirror-like finish, minted by the iconic San Francisco Mint. Call now and you're guaranteed a new first ever 99.9% pure silver proof Morgan dollar. To learn more, call 1-800-973-9717. If you order now, you will receive a free coin collector bonus pack, a $25 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-973-9717 now to secure your new Morgan silver dollars before they are gone. That's 1-800-973-9717.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Mike Moore. Now here's the latest from the Black Information Network We're now learning that a fourth body has been found at the site of the Baltimore bridge collapse. Unified Command says the body was found inside of a vehicle at the site on Sunday with the name not yet released. 8 construction workers were knocked into the water during the incident last month, with 2 rescued and 4 recovered so far. O.J. Simpson's estate says it doesn't plan on paying his civil trial judgment from 1997, although Simpson was acquitted of the murders of his ex-wife Nicole Brown Simpson and her friend Ron Goldman. In 1995, a civil court found him liable for the deaths and ordered him to pay $33 million to the victims' families. Simpson avoided paying most of the money while he was alive. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
Save big during Springfest at Lowe's. Get up to 35% off, plus save an extra $150 on every $1,500 you spend on select major appliances. Valid through 4/17. Appliance savings vary based on purchase amount. Exclusions apply. See Lowe's.com for more details.
The force is strong with the Dodgers. Come to Dodger Stadium on Monday, May 6th at 7:10 p.m. when the Dodgers take on the Miami Marlins to celebrate Star Wars Night. Purchase a special ticket pack to receive an exclusive Millennium Falcon bobble figurine. It's not a trap. Visit Dodgers.com/ticket pack.
Is this the This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Lakers are on the doorstep of making the NBA playoffs, but they're facing a difficult scenario. If they win their play-in game tonight in New Orleans, the Denver Nuggets are waiting for them in the first round. If the Lakers lose tonight, they'll play Friday night against Sacramento or Golden State for the privilege of a first-round matchup with Oklahoma City, the #1 seed in the Western Conference. Either option presents a tough task for the Lakers. The LA Sparks, who haven't made the playoffs in 3 years, had the #2 and #4 picks in the WNBA draft last night. With the #2 pick, the Sparks chose Stanford center Cameron Brink, the 2-time National Defensive Player of the Year. At #4, the Sparks chose Tennessee forward Rickea Jackson, a third-team All-American. The Sparks selected USC forward Mackenzie Forbes in the 3rd round. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Are you tired of being stuck without internet access? Connect and go with LA County Library. It's simple. Visit your local LA County Library location and borrow a hotspot for free to get Wi-Fi wherever you are.
KBLA Talk 1580 is the fastest growing talk radio station in Southern California. Home to 50,000 watts and an audience reach of 12 million listeners. KBLA Talk 1580 is a pioneer for Black audio content, including our groundbreaking $2 million climate justice campaign and the most loyal, influential audience. According to an independent research study by the polling firm Aviterus, for the 2nd consecutive year, KBLA Talk 1580 is the most trustworthy, reliable, and credible news source for Black audiences and beyond in Southern California. Let KBLA Talk 1580 power your advertising dollars. Our omni-channel custom marketing solutions are specifically tailored to connect with your ideal target audience. We leverage audio, podcasts, streaming, digital, social media, and local activations to get your message out to the Black community. Get in touch with our advertising team today at advertising@KBLA1580.com. That's advertising@KBLA1580.com. KBLA 1580. We've got you Black.
Without the ones like you, who work tirelessly to keep things running, everything would suddenly stop. Hospitals, factories, schools, and power plants, they all depend on you. No matter the weather, emergency, or time of day, you're the ones who get it done. At Grainger, we're here for you with professional-grade industrial supplies. Count on real-time product availability and fast delivery. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Pizza's here.
Oh, great. I'd love some, but I'm worried about my stomach issues.
If you're worried about having diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose, oily stools, it may not just be stomach issues. It could be a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and talk to your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
More honesty than you can handle. More empowerment than you can imagine. You're tuned in to Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Chauncey Alcorn, who's politics reporter for Capital B News. Pleased to have him on the program in this first hour today. So, Chauncey, as you know, we were discussing a bit of this moments ago about Donald Trump, I suspect, blaming black people in particular as these cases start to go against him. We've already seen Letitia James and her success. Now it's Alvin Bragg and his turn at bat in New York in this hush money case regarding hush money payments to the porn star Stormy Daniels. Trump has already argued repeatedly and will continue to argue, and is posting the same, that he cannot get a fair trial in New York. I don't know if that's true or not. Here's what I do know. That yesterday, the judge overseeing the case, Juan Merchan, dismissed dozens of potential jurors, dozens, on day one. Dozens of people were dismissed as potential jurors because they said they could not be impartial in this case. So now we're in day two. We're told that it may take a few days to actually seat a jury in this case. But people are just acknowledging up front, ain't no way in the world I can be impartial in this case. We expect the case to be about 6 weeks in length. And the question, I guess, for starters, is whether or not you think, given what happened yesterday, with all these folk being dismissed who said they could not be impartial, can Donald Trump, to his point, get a fair trial in New York City?
Well, the question I think is, if he can't get it in New York City, where would he be able to get it?
There you go.
This has raised a challenge in court. His lawyers here in Georgia on a similar contention that he couldn't get a fair trial here in Fulton County, which is the county where Atlanta sits. But unless you don't have a television or radio in this case, or you don't have internet, you probably heard that the former president has been indicted under all this, and you probably have an opinion about it. So certainly, lawyers will do their best to disqualify jurors that they feel show a bias that's going to hurt their client. I'm not sure if there's a situation where New York will be any less impartial than any other jurisdiction.
Yep. Maggie Haberman of the New York Times reported last night that Trump looked irritated and exhausted in the courtroom, and she reports that at one point he appeared to fall asleep before jolting himself back awake. And so even on day one, this guy is falling asleep in a trial that could, in fact, we shall see, that could in fact land him in jail. Again, so many storylines out of yesterday, that dozens of potential jurors were dismissed, that Trump apparently fell asleep during the in court. He gets out of court, and he was awake when he got out because he started posting stuff that now has Alvin Bragg, the DA in Manhattan, asking the judge to hold Donald Trump in contempt of court. Here's my next question. I don't know that any judge is ultimately going to hold Donald Trump in contempt of court for violating a gag order. And here's why I say that. I think these judges are going to bend over backwards, rightly or wrongly. They're going to bend over backwards, Chauncey. This is my view. I could be wrong. Bend over backwards to accommodate him in every possible way they can, so they don't give him more ammunition to say that he was treated unfairly. Furthermore, unless and until he's found guilty, I have a hard time seeing a former president sitting behind bars for contempt of pretty much anything. I could be wrong about this. And I've seen other judges already in these various cases who scolded him. And you'll recall the judge in the Letitia James case at one point said to his attorneys, "Counsel, get a hold of your client. We're gonna take a brief break here. Get a hold of your client. Get him together." But he did not. I mean, this is Trump in the courtroom going off on the judge to his face, and he didn't hold him in contempt. So, again, Alvin Bragg is asking for Judge Merchan to hold him in contempt, but I don't see it. What are your thoughts?
I could not agree more. I actually made a note of this as I was prepping for this interview. Trump has been good, and he's, people can say what they want about him being kind of, off the chain or a little bit crazy, but he is not stupid. He knows that he's a former president, and what judge wants to be responsible for holding a former president in contempt in the middle of a presidential election? Certainly, that would be kind of amplify Trump's claims that this is political persecution and an election interference at minimum, and potentially could prejudice a jury against him as well. So I think that you're absolutely 100% correct. Yep. It's not going to be good optics to hold a former president in contempt, regardless of the circumstances.
Which leads me to this, which is how the media is going to go about covering this. I mean, you got a guy who literally is on trial, and when he's not in the courtroom, he's running around the country campaigning as best he can. And this is all new territory. He is, of course, the first former president to ever be criminally charged. And I'm watching every day to see how the media is going to cover him both on trial and on the campaign trail, and not be accused, although he's going to accuse him of it anyway, of writing about him unfairly. That argument, the liberal media bias, will do him in as well, he will argue. But it's going to be fascinating just to watch our profession and how they cover him bouncing between the courtroom and the stage. Does that make sense?
100%. I think it's really, I have to step back sometimes to remind myself how unusual all of this is. I'm old enough to remember President Barack Obama being scrutinized over wearing a tan suit. Could you imagine if Obama had been accused of any of the things that Trump has been accused of, how that would impact his election or re-election chances? I think it's a testament to how unusual this time is in politics. It's, the media was criticized in 2016's campaign cycle for basically giving Trump free advertising, running his campaign rallies kind of nonstop. And I think we as an industry were rightly criticized for that. And in this case, this cycle, they've done the opposite. They've kind of, in large part, blocked him out of coverage. But now this, as you note, this is a 24-hour news cycle where he will be at the forefront, and it's not good news. So we'll see how it affects how he is covered.
So when we come forward, I want to head back down to Atlanta, where you are, to talk about any number of issues and storylines that we ought to be focused on regarding the state of Georgia. There's a lot to talk about in that regard. We'll do that when we come forward with Chauncey Alcorn, politics reporter for Capital B News.
This is getting good. Yeah, man. Tavis Smiley continues when we come forward.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
We used to argue about whose turn it was to clean the gutters, but then I had Leaf Filter gutter protection installed.
Wait, I told you Leaf Filter had free inspections and estimates and a lifetime guarantee.
Meaning we never have to argue about whose turn it is to clean the gutters again.
But I visited leaffilter.com/beacon first.
No, I did.
It doesn't matter who. Visit leaffilter.com/beacon to schedule your free gutter inspection and get up to 30% off today.
See representative for warranty details. Promotion is 20% off plus a 10% senior or military discount. One discount per household.
I feel occasional burning and stabbing in my hands as I age.
I sometimes feel numbness and tingling in my feet as I get older.
It's starting to get in the way of doing what I love.
At Nervive, we hear you, and we can help. Nervive's clinically studied dose of alpha-lipoic acid reduces occasional nerve discomfort in as little as 7 days with continued daily use.
Now that I know, I'm taking control.
Try Nervive Nerve Relief and say yes to healthy nerves. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
I have diabetes. I'm at risk for pneumococcal pneumonia.
I have asthma. I'm at risk too.
If you're 19 or older with chronic conditions like asthma, diabetes, COPD, or heart disease, or are 65 or older, you are at increased risk for pneumococcal pneumonia. Ask your doctor or pharmacist about Prevnar 20, pneumococcal 20-valent conjugate vaccine, a Pfizer vaccine that can help protect you against pneumococcal pneumonia in just one dose. Even if you've already been vaccinated with other pneumonia vaccines, Prevnar 20 may help provide added protection. Prevnar 20 is approved for adults to help prevent infections from 20 strains of the bacteria that cause pneumococcal pneumonia. Continued approval may depend on a supportive study. Don't get Prevnar 20 if you've had a severe allergic reaction to the vaccine or its ingredients. Adults with weakened immune systems may have a lower response to the vaccine. Side effects include pain and swelling at the injection site, fatigue, headache, muscle, and joint pain. For full prescribing information, please call 1-855-213-2138 or visit Prevnar20.com.
Helping to make you the most knowledgeable person in your circle of friends. This is Tavis Smiley.
Other arms reach out to me. Other eyes smile tenderly.
Chauncey, I was saying to a friend of mine last night that Georgia is like the new Florida. And what I mean by that is that Florida is perennially at the epicenter of our political discourse when it comes to national elections. And now Georgia, in every cycle of late, it obviously is a red state, and yet it pulled off, the citizens, pulled off victories for John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock, and we saw what Stacey Abrams was able to do. Our eyes, of course, are on Fonnie Willis. So our eyes are on that state for a variety of reasons. But Georgia always seems to be now in the thick of things when it comes to these to national politics. So I'm going to stand down for a second, give you just a few minutes here to just tick off the issues as you see them, as Capital B News is covering them. The things happening in the state of Georgia, the Peachtree State, that we need to be keeping our focus on between now and November.
Absolutely. So there's a number of things that we've been writing about. First and foremost, New Georgia Project is the voter engagement group that was founded years ago by Stacey Abrams. They recently released a report on their canvassing of folks across the state. They largely canvass in Black communities and do a lot of Black voter engagement. And they found that issues as it relates to inflation and the rising cost of living, issues as it relates to healthcare, and issues as it relates to public safety are the three top issues for the folks that they've spoken to. These are all issues, while crime in Metro Atlanta has been on the decline, or the city of Atlanta, there was I believe a 27% somewhere in the 20s overall decline in the city's murder rate after a surge during COVID. So that is locally, but in other parts of the state, crime is still a major concern. But the biggest issue I would say across the state that I hear about constantly is housing. It could not be more. It's not nearly as bad as it is in California, mind you, in terms of the numbers, but in terms of the ratios. There was last year Partners for Home, which does the annual homeless census count here in Georgia, found a 33% rise in the homeless population year over year in Metro Atlanta, and 83% of the folks who were surveyed identified as Black. So you're seeing a huge surge in Black homelessness. There's been an effort to try to repeal the statewide ban on rent regulation. Places like Los Angeles, New York City, they have rent control laws that that basically allow the city to affect a price of rent. That is not and has not been the case in Georgia, which has been controlled by Republicans at the state legislature and in the governor's office since the early 2000s. So the effort to try to repeal the ban has failed for the last 2 years. Democrats have promised to continue to keep trying on this because it's something that's so critical as we continue across the country to see Black folks displaced because of the rising cost of housing.
Yep. Is there? I'm watching my clock here. Well, let me just tell you what I want to do when we come forward. I want to ask you for an update if there is one on Cop City. A lot of people across the country are aware of this story because there are other cities that want to do likewise, other locales that want to do likewise, and people ain't having it. So I want to just get an update if I can on Cop City, and I also want to ask about Georgia's voting rights and what role. We already know that Trump. We know the case that Fonnie Willis has brought already about how he was trying to force people in that state to find him the votes that he needed. I'm curious as to whether or not we can have any of those issues this time around regarding voting rights. Our guest is Chauncey Alcorn, politics reporter for Capital B News. Our remaining moments with him when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Stay Housed LA has the resources you need to know your rights and the legal support to back them up. The COVID-19 pandemic has cost people their jobs and livelihoods. This has left an estimated 1/3 of households not being able to make rent and facing losing their homes. This is a fear no one in our community should have to face. You have rights, though, and Stay Housed LA is here to help. Stay Housed LA is a partnership between the County of Los Angeles, the City of Los Angeles, and local community and legal service providers. Together, they provide tenants with the information and support needed to exercise their rights so they can remain safely in their homes. Find out more about your rights by participating in a virtual tenant workshop. Get the legal assistance you need. Find additional resources in Los Angeles County and the City of Los Angeles. Stay connected to Stay Housed LA County for updates. This and more at stayhousedla.org. Stay connected to Stay Housed LA for updates. This and more at stayhousedla.org. That's stayhousedla.org. Or call their hotline at 213-694-0040. We've got your black with a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Don't shave with that, son. You'll get razor bumps.
Nah, Pops. I'm good with Gillette's Skin Guard. How long you been growing that beard anyway? You know Mama hates it.
Yeah, had it since my last wet shave in '77. Got ingrown so bad, looked like I was growing a patch of new noses.
That's why I use the Gillette Skin Guard razor, face scrub, shave gel, and moisturize, so I don't have to worry about new razor bumps or shaving irritation.
Gillette Skin Guard, huh? Your mama's gonna love this one.
Made fresh daily in Leimert Park, Los Angeles, California. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Chauncey Alcorn, politics reporter for Capital B News. Got about 3 or 4 minutes left in this conversation. Chauncey, what can you tell about Cop City? This is a story that's become a national story because there are other locales that would love to do likewise, sort of build out these massive spaces that we refer to as Cop Cities. But it all started, of course, down in Atlanta. So what's the update on Cop City there?
Well, they're still waiting on the outcome of a case for a voter referendum to try to put the training center issue on the ballot. The city of Atlanta, the mayor's office released, I believe it was in February, an announcement that 75% of this training center had already been completed. Some of the activists working against it have pushed back against that claim. But it appears that at least from so far that it's full steam ahead on the training center. Andre Dickens, who remains pretty popular amongst most of the electorate, as best as I can tell. There certainly is a loud plurality of folks who are angry about the training center, especially younger, more progressive voters. But he was applauded by the Republican Governor Kemp and his colleagues for the support and the continued construction of the training center and in the face of all the opposition to it. It was originally due to be completed by the end of this year, and it may be ahead of schedule as it stands.
And finally, voting rights. We all, of course, are fully aware of the case, once again, that Fani Willis has brought. We all know the storyline of Donald Trump saying, find me the votes, find me the votes, find me the votes. I guess my question is whether or not we are going to see a repeat of this storyline this November.
Well, as it relates to election integrity, SB 202 is the law that you're talking about, the Election Integrity Act of 2021. That is still on the books. That, of course, relates to reducing the number of drop boxes that were really critical during COVID when everybody was doing mail-in ballots. It also relates to the scrutiny of mail-in ballots. That law is still in place. There were some challenges to try to reduce the early voting hours earlier this year on the Georgia General Assembly, which had its last day of legislative session at the end of March. Those bills, last I checked, had stalled out. There was, as it relates to the reducing the early voting hours, but there still is an effort to address the issue of mass voter challenges. There was a group called True the Vote, which was responsible and was sued in court for voter intimidation by another group, Fair Fight Action, that was co-founded, I believe, by Stacey Abrams. That True the Vote was successful in that case in the sense that it was not determined that it was a form of voter intimidation. So it's still technically legal for folks to be challenged in mass. And I've talked with and done some reporting on some Black folks who've been caught up in that. Especially, there was a formerly homeless gentleman who had his eligibility challenge late last year or towards the fall of last year. And, he's should legally be allowed to vote. And he was one of the more extreme examples of how this affects people. Lastly, I would note election integrity, or I should say voter purges, as they call them. The Secretary of State, Brett Raffensperger, calls this voter list maintenance. This is what he and the former Secretary of State, current Governor Brian Kemp, have used to kick hundreds of thousands of people off the rolls. And that's still an issue here. Especially in light of the redistricting effort that's happened in Georgia.
As I said at the top of this conversation, many reasons to keep Georgia on our minds in this election cycle. We do not want a repeat of last time, but we shall see. Chauncey Alcorn is politics reporter for Capital B News. I've been delighted to have had him on this program. Chauncey, all the best to you, sir. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Tavis.
And we celebrate once again Capital B News, this Black-led nonprofit news outlet. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Mike Moore. Now here's the latest from the Black Information Network. We're now learning that a fourth body has been found at the site of the Baltimore bridge collapse. Unified Command says the body was found inside of a vehicle at the site on Sunday with the name not yet released. 8 construction workers were knocked into the water during the incident last month, with 2 rescued and 4 recovered so far. O.J. Simpson's estate says it does. Information Network and BINnews.com.
Save big during SpringFest at Lowe's. Get up to 35% off, plus save an extra $150